Good afternoon, coaches. My name is Chaz Henry, and this is Session 2 of the PowerChalk University. The goal here is to give you a detailed walkthrough of the PowerChalk system. Basically, we want to show you everything you need to get started using motion analysis with your team or with your business. To review just briefly, last time we talked about how to register a free account, how to upload a video clip to your locker. We also logged in, and I'm going to switch over to my PowerChalk screen here. We logged in, we put ourselves in the video manager, and we talked about how to share the videos that are in my locker, and also how to give others access, how to create public and private videos and to give others access to the videos in your locker. We also talked about premium content and the libraries that the PowerChalk is building to serve as models for comparing your students, your athletes, your kids with. And then what we did, we kicked off the Telestrator. So I took one of my videos here. Let's take Cole Henry here. We hovered on the ChalkTalk, the headset icon, and we kicked off that video. And as we said, you can also just pull this menu down and say ChalkTalk this video. And we were in the Telestrator, so let's go back to the Telestrator, and I'll show you while we're here that you can also get into the Telestrator by just clicking Telestrate. And the difference here is by going in this way, I'll enter the Telestrator with no particular video loaded. So it's much like Microsoft Word, and you can kick Word off and then load a video, or you can double-click a document and load Word against that video or against that document. So that's much the same concept with the Telestrator. So here we are, we're in the Telestrator, and we have not loaded a video yet. And so let's talk about, click back over to my outline here, and let's talk about the different ways to load video. So within the Telestrator, you can search the entire database. You can view your videos, view the available videos as data grid or as thumbnails, and you can also search the various folders. So back to the Telestrator here, and the loading takes place in this Load A slot right here. And you'll notice that this is a position, this is an area that's reserved for the thumbnail. So let's go ahead and click Load A, and the Telestrator pops the file browser, and it takes me to the last folder that I was in. So you notice it says Public Videos here, and I was last in Public. Again, I can go to My Videos and look at the various videos in my locker. I can go to the premium content, and in that case I can select a subfolder, and the subfolders are the National High School Invitational. So there's baseball clips that PowerChalk shot and compiled from the USA Baseball National High School Tournament. We can go to the USA Diving event that was held in Fort Lauderdale about 3 weeks ago. And you'll see a lot of our Olympic hopefuls in there. And these are excellent models for your young divers. But you can also use the search filter. And if I'm looking particularly for a 205B dive, then I can put that in, and I can reduce the entire set of clips that are available to clips that have that in the title, text, or tags. So you notice 205B, and then 205B matches up to the particular dive that's being performed. So to clear that out, I can hit the little recycle button here, and that clears it. I can also view my results as either a data grid. So if you're looking for more of the details, if you're looking to for shorter clips, the advantage of being in the data grid is I can click this column, and you'll notice it sorts it 3, 4, 5. So these are the time in seconds. So I can look for longer clips versus shorter clips. I can look for particular tags or video names. Or again, I can go back to thumbnails, and I can view like that. So once I select one of these videos, you'll notice that my OK button becomes an option, and that's how I would load that particular video. So now the next thing to note within the Telestrator here is that once I've loaded video A, if I'm a premium account, so if I have a pro account, or if I've bought the split screen option, and we talked the first time about a standard account comes with a single screen Telestrator. So you have the entire use of the Telestrator, but you'll get a message that Load B is a premium feature. So me being a premium user, I have the Load B, and I can come back in, and I can, in this case, go to my golfing library, and I can pick one of these golf videos and load a second video. And now to toggle back and forth between the two videos, you notice this thumbnail is now loaded with the golfer, and this thumbnail is loaded with the synchronized divers. So I can just click on the thumbnail, and you'll notice this little tick here. This tick indicates which I'm on. Now, since there's only two available, no matter which one I click, it will toggle to the other. All right, so that's a way that I can go back and forth between the two videos that I have loaded. So now let's talk about the other folders. So I can continue to load videos. And then we talked about having three different modes. So the first mode of operation for the Telestrator is what we call shoulder to shoulder. So you and I are in the same room, and one of us could be the coach, one could be the parent, we could have the athlete in the same room, and we spend hours looking at these videos. We're grabbing the playhead, and we're pulling the sports action into different frames, and you can start to see differences in my synchronized divers here. You can see leg positions, and we can start to analyze those divers. And we make observations, and in shoulder-to-shoulder mode, nothing is recorded. So we really haven't saved anything from this session. We've just made insights, and maybe we've gone back out to the pool to work on some of the particular observations that we've made. So that's shoulder-to-shoulder mode. We've also got the ability to record an analysis. So if I click this record button, the system will count down and say 3, 2, 1, action. And that's the indicator to me that it's now recording. So you'll see my microphone level starting to jump. So it's using my microphone here. You'll see that starting to jump. You'll see that also I have the ability to draw lines. And those lines will then be picked up and put in the final video. So the final video, when I'm in record mode, consists of everything that's in this window. So when I draw my yellow window here, everything that's inside that window, what it does not include, and I'll grab my highlighter here, it does not include any of the user interface. So all of this area on the left, all of this area on the bottom that controls my video, and all of this area on the right is not included in the recorded video. So essentially it's picking up only the video area and not the user interface. So let me clear that out. And now let's talk about, in this mode, how to control videos. So one thing to note is that I can just grab the playhead and I can pull it and I can take them to any position within the video. I can also control the playhead by clicking plus, and that moves the playhead one frame at a time. I can click minus, which moves the playhead backward one frame at a time. Now you'll see the readout. I'm on frame 181 of 289 frames. So this particular video has 289 frames, and I can position myself anywhere in that. I can control the screen by, just as I did here, by clicking on these thumbnails. I can also split the screen using this radio button. This is called a radio button because only one or the other can be punched like an old car style radio. And I can also do the same with these buttons down here. So I can, if my cursor happens to be down at the bottom here where I'm controlling the play, either through slow-mo. So here I'll play this in super slow-mo. So I'm using the controls, what I call my VCR controls. I'm using them to put this golfer in motion. Now you'll notice he is moving, so I see my frames moving 60, 70, 80. But this particular clip, he was set for quite a few seconds. So now you see him starting to move, and I can pause that. But I can play in 10 frames per second. I can play in 5 frames per second. I can slow it down even further. And I can play normal motion. backwards in slow motion. And these buttons, the one with the basically we call it a limiter, it looks like a square brace, lets me take the playhead and set the playhead back to any position. So essentially, what we just saw here was up until about right there. Up until about frame 52, there's really no movement at all. So what I might want to do with this clip is I might want to come in here and on my left brace, I might want to go ahead and just move that in that many frames. And basically that tells me that there's nothing interesting that happens in this part of the clip. Now, I could roll him through and I could say from about right there, there's really nothing interesting happening in the last part, and I could move my right brace in the same manner. So again, that's what the left and right brace do. They really limit the clip to just those frames, and now when I click this button, it takes me back to where the action really starts. So that's a description of these buttons within the VCR part of the outline or part of the timeline. All right, within split screen, I can jump back and forth. So you notice that these buttons, if I click plus, you'll see my golfer start to move, and he is the highlighted clip. So you'll see this green ring that is around his clip. Now we only have one set of VCR controls, so in order to control the divers, I would just need to touch their clip, and now you'll see the green ring highlights the divers, and now my play in slow motion button or my back one frame button applies to the divers. So by just touching the clip, I can highlight one clip or the other, and that determines which of the clips is controlled by my timeline tools. Now, if these were both golf shots, if these were both dives, if these were clips that I were putting in sync and we're going to play frame by frame, then I can click the lock button, and you notice now that the green ring highlights both clips. So now as I click plus, you see my divers moving, you'll see the splash there, and you'll also see the club head of my pro moving. So I can synchronize, I can pull two clips in, and I can synchronize them using the lock button in the middle, and now all of my VCR buttons are controlling both the left and the right-hand clip at the same time. Now, a couple things to be aware of. If I pull two clips in and I'm trying to synchronize them, is that this clip on the left is shot at 59 frames per second. So this area here indicates the speed of that clip. And I have similar data that's reported for each video, and you'll notice that this clip here was shot at 29 frames per second. So obviously, if I play frame by frame two clips that were shot at different speeds, if I play frame by frame two golfers that have different paces within their swings, they may not line up frame by frame. So we're going to talk about that. That's when we get down to looking ahead to our outline here. Slide number 23 is about keyframes. We'll talk about keyframing two videos and putting them in sync even if they're different paces and different video speeds. But hopefully that covers most of the timeline. Now I'll also make mention of the, let me clear my highlighting out here. I'll also make mention of some of the other buttons here. If my golfer on the right here was my model golfer, but the golfer that I loaded on the left was left-handed, this button here, which is this little stick figure, and you notice as I hover over it, it flips left to right. That's my mirror button. So that lets me mirror a clip and play it as if it were mirror imaged. So I can turn lefties into righties. I can turn, if I'm at the pool and I'm shooting diving, and I've got one that's shot face in from the left and one that's shot face in from the right, I want them both to be heading the same way. So it's easier to make those comparisons. Then I can mirror this clip as well. So let me bring my divers back up, and I'll take them all the way up to the top of the platform, and I'll click my mirror button, and you notice the flag, the FINA flag there, goes from the left to right. Now, I purposely let my recording run down. You notice in the upper left-hand corner, I've run down my allotted time. With a premium account, your record time is 8 minutes. And that's not a technical limitation, but that's what we've found to be the best limit for the attention span of a web-based telestration. And as I said in my first session, you can easily pull this same clip back up, and you could talk to your diver about their footwork. You could talk to the diver about their head positions, their rotations. You can take the same clip and you can telestrate it many times. So I could telestrate that clip 3 or 4 times, and I could make 3 or 4 8-minute sessions out of it. But at this time, at this point, when my 8 minutes have expires, it jumps up and asks me what the athlete is. And again, this could be Henry, Chaz, or if not athlete, then subject, because this, in the baseball world, this could be, maybe ground ball drills. So you put the athlete or the subject, you put the video title, and this could be, let's say we're working on hip rotation. The tags are used for searching, so this could be Fort Lauderdale. This could be literally any keywords that I want to find this by later. This could be 2012, this could be FINA, this could be USA Diving. And I encourage you to load your tags up. There's really no reason to not be generous with tags, because ultimately it may be the best way to find this. So I could make this a diving clip, and typically I would say go here, and then it would render itself back into my locker. But in this case, this is not a clip that I want to save, and I'll say I want to discard. Yes, I do. And so now we've talked about loading videos. We've talked about the timeline. Let me do this. With this session expired, let me go ahead and reset the session. And that's, again, one of the advantages of being in a browser. To reset and to bring everything back to square one, I can simply refresh the browser. And in that case, I use the reset button. But here I could also just overload my videos. So I'm going back into video A, and I'm going to My Favorites. And I will load a video, Joe Corrigan, from the National High School Invitational. So I'm loading this baseball hitter in A. And I'll load Dylan White, also from the National High School Invitational. I'll load him in video B. And what we'll talk about now is we'll talk about the different markup tools. So we'll talk about the left-hand palette here. And now with my batter loaded in A, what I can start to do with my kids is I can start to draw their attention to the fact that his hands are in a very relaxed position. This is not by any means his loaded position, but I'll bring their attention to that by using my markup tools. Now we'll go top to bottom here. My markup tools start with the laser. Now the laser, I might want to put my laser right on his nose, and I may want to talk about, his vision and his line of vision to the pitcher. The advantage of a laser is I can bring attention to this front foot by putting the laser on the front foot, and when I pull my mouse up, I don't have to later erase that. So if I'm recording, it's a way for me to use markup or to draw attention without needing to turn around like I would with the circle around his hands and erase it. So that's what the laser is good for. The line is pretty obvious. If I want to talk about his back hip position, then I can just simply draw a line on that back hip position. While we're drawing here, let me go ahead, because this clip, depending on what the colors are in your actual movie, a red line may show up better, so I'll redraw that line and I'll just draw right on top of it. I'll change my color to red and then go back to my line tool. So again, I can draw his vision to the pitcher with that red line. Now you'll notice in the line tool there's a little, what I call a tick. So this little tick that's in the corner lets me change the line tool itself. So I can go to vertical lines, and now if I'm drawing, let's say, his balance point, and I start right in the middle here, no matter how far my cursor gets, you'll notice my cursor drifting off to the left here, no matter how far my cursor gets to the left, the line does not bend over, does not angle over toward it, it only goes vertically. So it's a very quick way and a very sure way to draw vertical lines. Obviously I can tick this again and I can do horizontal lines. So I may talk about, the catchers framing the pitch or calling for the pitch down here. And I'll draw that with a horizontal line. And my last line choice is a dash line. Typically you'd use this in a diagram to show a pass, or again I might want to differentiate between where his front and back hip is, and I'll draw that front hip with a dash line. So there's my various line tools. A box tool is just what you'd imagine it to be. Now, in all of these cases, what I'm doing so far is I am holding my mouse down once I get into that mode, and I'm just dragging. So my mouse stays down, and then when I've stretched out the entity, the markup entity, to the position I want, I just simply let go. And at that point, I've locked that entity. Now, I can't redraw that box. That box is set now, but I could draw another box because I stay in box mode. So I can draw, and again, I just hold, drag, and then let up on my mouse. So that's how all of these entities are drawn, with two exceptions, and we'll get to those. So to erase, I can either erase the last thing I drew, so I can erase these boxes one by one by clicking erase last, erase last, erase last, or I can slide over here with my erase menu popped out, and I can say erase all. So it'll take away everything that I've drawn to this point. At this point, I grab my pencil. Notice also that to use these markup tools, I simply click the tool once, and I'm now in that mode. So you'll see the mode reflected up here. I'm in draw mode, and now draw mode is freeform mode. So my circles aren't perfect, but you can just go around and draw. And even I find myself, even when I'm drawing things that are essentially straight lines like the bat here, I'll just stay in draw mode because it's so versatile. So I can talk about the catcher, where he's calling for the pitch. I can talk about the batter and where he's looking. And again, even though they're not perfect lines and circles, I stay in draw mode, and I'm pretty versatile about, maybe outlining a shape or drawing. Think of your drawing as a clear plastic layer. So this really has no impact on the video itself. The video is really the layer that's underneath that the clear layer that I'm drawing on. So I can take my batter and I can move him through his swing, and I can stop him anywhere, and now these drawings become the original positions. So I know now that the catcher was framing down here. He's already starting to raise his glove. We know, if I roll back, we know where the batter's front foot started, so we know where his front foot lands. So again, I might take my draw tool and I might draw around his front foot, and I now know that it's come from there to there. So I can talk to this batter about, how much linear movement, he's got in his front foot. Again, I'll roll back, and I might put from the point where he gets really loaded or he gets set, I might draw a square for around his head, and I might talk to him about where his head ends up. So he has linear movement in his head. Go back to my regular line. When he finally locks that front leg out, then he should become very rotational around that line, which he does. Okay? So again, you've got some batters who are working toward no linear movement whatsoever. And you see these two red squares here show you his linear movement through the first part of his swing. So he's linear until he's rotational, and then he's pretty solid as far as being rotational. But again, my point here was to show you that the entities that I draw, the markups, they stay on the screen. So they stay on that clear plastic sheet until I erase them, and they become reference points, to show how the video behind them has progressed through the various frames. So let me erase all of those and move down to my next. Again, the circle and oval have variations. And the difference is, you'll notice when I'm in circle, the crosshairs are in the middle. So if I get into the very middle of this helmet and I draw out, then I'm going to always stay centered around my first click. So if I get in the middle of this catcher's glove and I hold my mouse down and I start to draw out, no matter how big the circle gets, it will stay centered around the center of that mitt. Okay? The alternative is, if I go to oval mode, you'll see that the little crosshair is up in the corner. So the difference in that is if I click down and hold, then that bottom corner is the fixed position. So wherever I take my mouse, it still is anchored into that bottom corner. So that's the difference between an oval and a circle. And again, you can easily toggle back and forth between those two using the little tick mark in the corner of that markup. Now let's talk about path. So if I go into path mode and I click path once, now this is an exception to the rule of drag and hold. So path expects me to just dot the screen one time, and now what I'm doing, I'm using my arrow keys, and I could just as easily use the plus key here to advance the frames, and I'll dot again. Notice I'm still in path mode. All right, so I click the dot again, I'll advance the frames, and I'll dot that hand again. So what I'm doing, I'm tracking something through space. In this case, his hand path. And I'll dot again, and I'll dot again. Now path has what we call a modifier. So you notice as soon as I started laying down the dots for this path, this fit curve button came on and started blinking. So if I move my cursor off of it, it continues to blink, and it's reminding me that if I want, I can fit a curve through the path dots that I've drawn. So that's an easy way to track something through space. What I could just as easily do is, let's change my cursor to this purple color here. I'm going to back up with that still there, and I'm going to find the ball. Now the ball comes in, if I hit path again, the ball comes in right, it's hard to see because it's over in that white logo that's on the field, but I'll path the ball. Now at that point it's going the other way because he's made good contact, but I'll fit a curve through there. And what I'm trying to show my athlete is that the ball is almost always coming down. So much more pronounced in Little League. So I'll show my kids that the ball is coming down and your bat is trying to get in the path of that ball. So again, there's use of the path tool. And now we'll talk about angle. So let me erase everything I've drawn, erase all. And now you notice the angle also has two variations, and the only difference is whether the X with the degree sign is there or not. So if I want to show this batter the angle of this leg, it's 116 degrees. Okay, now a lot of times what I feel as a coach is I want to show them how athletic they are, and I want to show them that they've maybe, locked out this arm or not, whether they're using an arm bar or or an angled arm, kind of the Power V arm. So I may want to show them that. But in a lot of cases, I don't want especially young kids to fixate on 116 degrees because nobody knows what that feels like. So the other variation on the angle tool is to click the version of angle that shows X off, and I'll erase all, and I'll go back to this, and I'll go click, 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 and click. And what I'm showing my athlete is what his skeleton looks like. So I'll show him that he's very straight on the front leg and he's got a good torque on the back leg, that he's taking the weight off that foot and he's really getting rotational around the front. But I don't want him fixated on angles. And I may show that in contrast with another player. So I may go over to my other player here and I'll show either more or less of an angle. And I'll go click, 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 click. And again, I can go back and forth and show them the difference in those two. And again, I don't want them being confused by the number of degrees, and that's what the angle tool, that's what taking the numbers on and off. All right. So now let me erase that. And I noticed time flies here. We're already bumping up on the 30-minute mark. So let me try to get through the rest of the markup tools, and we'll call that a day. The ruler tool I'm going to go back into my library and I'm going to load a picture in this case. So you notice the picture loads in B. So what I really did is I overrode the B slot, and I'm now looking at a picture, and I pulled him up because he's probably a better use of the ruler tool. Now the ruler tool measures things, but of course these are movies and we don't know where they were shot from, how far away the cameraman was. So when I measure, I'm really measuring in pixels. So in this case it says it's 252 pixels, and you measured it with a 90-degree line, so a perfectly perpendicular line you measured with. And you know, that doesn't tell me whether this picture is 5 foot tall or 6 foot tall, but what it does help with is, and this is why you want to shoot your videos orthogonal. You want to shoot straight in, you know, either the catcher's, umpire's view, or from a dead center field, or straight, as we are in this case, face into the pitcher. Because what I can do now with the ruler is I can put it on the rubber, on his toe, and I can drag forward, and everybody goes to different spots. I particularly go to the ankle bone, and I let loose, and it now says that's 221 pixels, and oh, by the way, it's 88% of the last thing you measured. So I now can tell this pitcher with certainty that he's taking almost a 90% stride. He's taken a 90% of his height stride. Now, as a coach, whether that's the right number, Randy Johnson took an 80% stride. Mark Burley takes 115. So there's really no right or wrong number. But what it lets me do as a coach is move my player toward 90%, you know, move him toward 80%, whatever the age-appropriate number is. And maybe if he was striding 70% last time, you know, then we're moving toward 80. So that's the ruler tool. And then finally, we'll get to the last tool, and like I said, we'll call it a day. We're running out of time here. But the text tool is essentially a way for me to put titles onto the video itself. And again, if I'm in an interactive mode and I'm sitting here with my parent or my athlete, then I probably wouldn't do that because I'm communicating with them. But if I'm recording a video and I want good to show up on the video, then I just type good into the box, and then I turn this on. So the show check turns it on or off. So I could say, hey, that's really good, and you know, because what we're working on is 3 things, and I've asked you to get over the knee, and I want to show that on the video. Remember, everything that I do and say when I'm in the record mode shows up on this video. So when I throw that text on there, it will be part of the finished video. So it's a really nice way to basically give the video a title. You know, if we're working on diagrams, which we'll talk about next time, you know, we could say cut 4 with a runner on second, and that could be the title of my video. So again, this is just a way to pop up a little title maker. And by the way, if you find yourself with a video that has a lot of white in it, then maybe blue is going to be my best color, or maybe red will be my best color for that title to show up. So you can also control the color of the text it shows. And again, I can turn that on or off. So in this case, I just turn it off and then put, using the OK button, I put the whole control away. So that's it. That's the Telestrator in depth. We haven't gotten to everything, and we'll touch on these tools down at the bottom next time, but we did, you know, get through the entire draw menu. You know, we talked about how to load videos, A and B videos, talked about the various folders that you can use in order to load those videos. We'll go in more depth next time for the various folders. You know, we didn't load out of each folder. We pretty much worked out of my videos, public videos, and what we call the premium content. So we'll talk about the other folders next time. And we also talked about all of the ways to control the video frame by frame. So next time like I said, we'll go into more depth about the various folders, and we'll also talk about keyframes. What I have the ability to do is take these videos and pop up what's called the Keyframe Editor, and I can name the various positions. So I'll give a little teaser of that here. If I say this is a baseball swing, it says we have the following predefined positions, and I'll say let's use those. And I can now go in and give a frame number to stance, load, plant, weight shift, etc., and it makes it very easy for me to compare two videos. So coaches, that's it. I'm beyond our 30 minutes. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording. I will take questions, so if you want to hang out, please do, but I will stop the recording at this point. That's going up on youtube.com/PowerChalk. I'll stay online and I'll reply to questions for as long as there are questions. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday for session 3.